There is growing outrage concerning payments made to members of our armed forces, including now a top-ranking congressman. The Pentagon is ordering about 10,000 National Guard soldiers from California to pay back their enlistment bonuses, saying an audit reveals they were overpaid. The money was meant to encourage enlistment during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan more than 10 years ago. If the soldiers refuse, they could risk being fined or taxed even more. Well, now House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California calling this, quote, disgraceful, adding our military heroes should not shoulder the burden of military recruiters' fault from over a decade ago. Rather, we are the ones who owe a debt for the great sacrifices our heroes have made, some of whom unfortunately paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Well, the debate over gun regulation once again on the forefront in Lansing after a package of bills was introduced aimed at reducing gun violence.
Part of the proposed legislation could make it a felony to own one. Fox 17's Brody Carter is in the newsroom now with details on this. Brody?
Yes, it's known as the Assault Weapon Regulation Act. It's 5 pages aimed at restricting future ownership of these assault rifles, these assault weapons, and whether or not it's unconstitutional or it's simply an act of politics. The gun advocates I spoke with simply don't like it.
Well-intentioned but misguided.
Mixed reviews on House Bill 5996, the Assault Weapon Regulation Act.
It's really going to mostly affect law-abiding citizens.
If passed, would turn the manufacturing, purchasing, possessing, selling, and transferring of assault weapons into a 4-year felony. One of 9 bills introduced Wednesday, all aimed at reducing gun violence.
They don't want to just ban these types of guns. What they really want to ban is anything with a trigger.
Tom Lambert, advocate with Michigan Open Carry, believes the legislation is nothing more than a political stunt.
We're 22 months into a 24-month legislative session, and it's, 3 weeks before the elections? I think everybody can piece together why these bills are suddenly coming out right now.
The bill defines an assault weapon as a semi-automatic pistol or a semi-automatic or pump-action rifle capable of using detachable magazines, trigger pistol grips, shoulder stocks, barrel shrouds, muzzle brakes or compensators, and shotguns with detachable magazines or revolving cylinders.
What it means, according to this bill, is to ban common things that help people handle guns safely. So why would we ban things that make handling guns safer if it's violence that we want to reduce?
There are some exceptions for people owning an assault weapon before the proposed law's effective date, which includes registering the weapon annually with state police.
The idea of just banning these guns so that citizens can't own them is not really going to have an impact on crime because the people doing this stuff are largely getting them illegally.
FBI records from Michigan in 2015 showed 20 people were killed by a rifle or shotgun that year, while 148 were killed by a handgun. Meanwhile, 52 were killed using knives, 27 using hands, fists, or feet, and 103 killed by other weapons.
How many times do we have to prove that this stuff doesn't stop bad people from doing bad things?
Time now to take a look at all the craziness at campuses around the country. DePaul University, a Catholic school in Chicago, has banned pro-life posters that say unborn lives matter. In a public letter posted on the school's website, the university president referred to the posters as, quote, bigotry under the cover of free speech. The posters were designed by the college Republicans and resembled similar posters made to honor the Black Lives Matter movement. The university president went on to say in his letter that the pro-life poster design, quote, provokes the Black Lives Matter movement, end quote, and doesn't reflect the Catholic values of the university. In a statement to Fox News, DePaul cited the university's, quote, guiding principles of speech and expression, which make clear, they say, that the speech deemed hurtful by the university will not be tolerated. A teacher at Norman North High School in Norman, Oklahoma, told students, quote, to be white is to be racist, period.
You can visit them, reclaim them, and then rename them.
This video caused a Norman North student to pull out her cell phone and start recording.
And he pulls out this globe with a bottle of whiteout and marks over a country or a piece of a country and puts his name on it. So he was basically comparing what he had done to the globe to what we did to America.
When the video was over, she says her teacher continued the conversation and lecturing on how to heal the racial divide. His theories stunned the student.
To be white is to be racist, period.
She says she was instantly offended.
Half of my family is Hispanic, so I just felt like, him calling me racist just because I'm white, I mean, where's your proof in that?
The words that followed even more shocking to her.
Am I racist? And I say, yeah, I don't want to be. It's not like I choose to be racist, but do I do things because of the way I was raised.
I felt like he was encouraging people to kind of pick on people for being white.
Why is it okay to demonize one race, to children that you're supposed to be teaching a curriculum to?
Norman Public Schools says the teacher was sharing a perspective that had been shared at a university. In a statement, the superintendent said, "Racism is an important topic that we discuss in our schools. We regret that the discussion was poorly handled. When the district was notified of this concern, it was immediately addressed."
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Tel Aviv will assist in funding a settler-driven excavation project near Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem, Al-Quds. The so-called Temple Mount project is run by the right-wing settler group El-Ad that's engaged in forced eviction of several Palestinian families from their homes. The project will also involve what has been described as Israeli volunteers to build a connection between Israel and the city of Al-Quds. Tel Aviv's decision to financially support the project follows a resolution by the United Nations Cultural Agency against Israel. The resolution by UNESCO branded Israel as an occupying power and maintained that only Palestinians have historical connections to Al-Aqsa. Analysts say that the Israeli Prime Minister is trying to buy time for a second UNESCO vote on the resolution, which Tel Aviv hopes would be softer than the previous one.
It's an attempt to challenge UNESCO. It's also a desperate attempt to produce a Jewish history in the Al-Aqsa Mosque or underneath it, in order to complement the Israeli claims that Solomon's temple is beneath the Islamic holy site.
The upcoming UNESCO vote will take place on Wednesday and is being pushed by several Arab countries. Israel has already put pressure on the UN Cultural Agency, calling for boycotting it. Netanyahu's support for the excavations had already begun in anticipation for the next vote UNESCO will take over the subject of Al-Quds.
Now today, October 24th, is United Nations Day, which commemorates the global body's creation 71 years ago.
Following two global wars, the UN came into existence on October 24th, 1945, aiming for the maintenance of peace and cooperation in the world. Representatives of some 50 countries, including China, France, the UK and the US, met in San Francisco to draw up the United Nations Charter, which pursues the fulfillment of human rights and cooperation between the member states to overcome social, economic, humanitarian and cultural challenges. A majority of the countries signed and ratified the Charter in the days following, establishing the international body of 51 member states and 6 principal organs, including the General Assembly, the Security Council and the International Court of Justice. 71 years later, the UN has expanded to 193 member states, working to maintain peace, prevent conflicts and attend to humanitarian crises.
China's Ministry of National Defense says it has lodged an official complaint with Washington after a U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer, the USS Dakota, sailed through Chinese territorial waters near Xisha Islands without China's permission. After the U.S. warship entered Chinese waters, 2 Chinese Navy ships issued a strong warning demanding it to leave. The ministry has released an official response announcing strong opposition to the military maneuver. In a statement, it said the United States is well aware of China's territorial sea baseline and criticized Washington for trying to destabilize the region, just as the situation in the South China Sea is starting to improve. The ministry added that the ship's deployment undermines mutual trust and goes against past efforts to resolve regional tensions. China has repeatedly urged the U.S. to respect China's national sovereignty and security concerns and warned that the Chinese military will strengthen its surveillance and defense capabilities in the region if needed.
United States, South Korea and Japan are conducting a 2-day joint maritime drill near South Korea's Jeju Island. The drill is focusing on maritime search and rescue. However, it also includes identifying and searching for ships from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea as a fake target. And this is the first maritime joint drill between the 3 countries since 2012, when relations between Japan and South Korea were affected by comfort women issues. And the dispute has since been laid aside. Military cooperation restarted in June this year when armies of the 3 countries held a joint drill in Hawaii on tracking ballistic missiles.
French police officers stage a protest rally in Paris for a 6th day in a row to demand better protection for field officers and harsher punishments for criminals.
We just need to apply the law. It's necessary that the thugs are punished and the fear has to change its side. Today it's the police who are in fear. It's not only the citizens. Police also. We have become targets, but we're not cannon fodder, and we have the means to restore order. We just need to want to.
Hundreds of officers participated in the demonstration carrying signs that read, "Police are angry." They called for reinforcements and slammed lack of government spending to deal with lawlessness. The officers said they are fed up with their situation, warning the government against ignoring their demands. The protests are triggered by a spate of attacks on the police during street demonstrations and patrols in crime-stricken suburbs.
Public security, total economic collapse, and a widespread lack of basic supplies. Prices of basic goods are 4 to 5 times higher than those of 5 years ago.
Things are expensive and people have no money in their pockets. Life is real tough, and that's that.
Many places in Tripoli have 5 to 6 hours of power outages every day.
Poor public security, frequent power failures, and cancellation of flights to other countries have strained people's lives. All countries have vacated their embassies in Libya, making it almost impossible for Libyans to apply for foreign visas. Whether there is genuine political change remains in dispute among Libyans. However, they easily agree on one thing: their lives have gotten messier after the revolution.
We had wished that things could get better, but so far there's no sign of that. We knew it would take time, but we didn't know that it would take so long.
Hospitals face severe shortages of medical supplies and equipment falls into disrepair. This is Abu Salim Hospital in the country's capital, Tripoli, the only emergency and trauma care hospital.
Right now our capacity is only at 25% and it's getting worse. It may be only 20% tomorrow and 10 or even 5% the day after that. At any time, we could end up being closed due to our inability to accept patients.
There was a clash last night. Many shells hit our farmhouses. One old woman was killed and one girl was hit in the legs. At the moment, we have no access to necessary treatment or medicine. It's really bad.
Instead of one state leader, Libya now has 2 regimes and 3 armed forces. Many Libyans believe there might be one solution to all: consensus, with no outside intervention. Because after all, it's their lives, and the future must be in the hands of the Libyans themselves.
A cartoon which appeared on social media shows a drowning Egyptian, only his hand protruding from the depths, waving for help. The next strips show President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi diving in, taking the drowning man's watch and turning away. The cartoon captures the mood of desperation and anger among Egyptians, clobbered by tax rises, soaring food price inflation, and cuts in state subsidies. Some fear a repeat of the mass street protests that drove Sisi's 2 immediate predecessors from power. The government has tried to win public support for the austerity measures with a billboard campaign and media blitz, and has also sought to expand social security schemes to shield the poorest from the effects of the rising prices. But many Egyptians who would not qualify for such schemes complain they can no longer afford meat, while sugar shortages have driven fears of an impending food crisis.
Zombies and vampires have been horror chic for about a decade, but now they've got company.
I know you.
Some 40 years after The Exorcist, demonic possession is back. On October 30th, a live exorcism special will air on the Destination America cable channel. Outcast, based on the possession-themed comic book series by Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman, is coming to Cinemax next year.
We don't know anything.
Ash vs. Evil Dead, based on the Evil Dead film franchise, is premiering on the Starz cable network on Halloween. There's also a sequel to 2013's hit movie The Conjuring, in production by New Line Cinema.
Look what she made me do.
And The Witch, a film festival darling, set in colonial New England, opens in February.
Oh God, my Lord, I now begin. Oh, help me and don't leave my sin.
The frequent reference to true events makes demonic possession ripe for the big screen. 1973's The Exorcist, inspired by a real incident, is the granddaddy of the possession genre, and the most successful horror film of all time. The film spawned a sequel, as well as several knockoffs and parodies, like this one in Ghostbusters.
There is no Dana, only Soul.
Whether Possession Story is based on a true story or inspired by true events is often a big selling point. A recent example is 2014's Deliver Us from Evil, based on the experience of a former New York City cop and a self-described demonologist, Ralph Sarchie. Another figure reigniting the genre is Pope Francis. Mark Neveldine, director of the 2015 exorcism thriller The Vatican Tapes, said the Pope is one of the main reasons interest in demonic possession is surging. This 2013 YouTube video, which depicts Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square praying over a man, suggested to many the pontiff was banishing a demon. At the time, the Vatican said the Pope didn't intend to perform an exorcism, but was praying for a suffering person who was presented to him. The possession narrative is often pegged to Roman Catholic beliefs, but the fear of spiritual invasion is more broad, as seen in some recent films.
The spirit is the taker of children.
Thousands of zombies roamed the streets in Mexico City on Saturday in the name of charity. The city held its 9th annual Zombie Walk to collect canned and non-perishable goods for food banks and homes in need. Zombies young and old took part in the walk and said it's both fun and important. The Zombie Walk has always been about having fun, but it's also for a good cause, this person said. Collecting food for different organizations is the purpose of the walk, said another, but we also just like to zombify ourselves. Similar zombie walks took place in other Mexican cities. The Zombie Walk phenomenon began in Sacramento, California in 2001. Since then, the event has spread to major cities around the world, including New York, Buenos Aires, Bogota, Singapore, Sao Paulo, and Frankfurt.
The second Halloween Gathering Festival and Parade in Chicago was held by the city's Cultural Mile Association Saturday. The festival consisted of an afternoon section as well as a nighttime parade. On Saturday afternoon, families were invited to show off their own costumes and to dance in Grant Park, located in the central part of the city. Dozens of groups, including world-renowned institutions like the Field Museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, and Chicago Symphony Orchestra, put on a 2-hour parade.
Winter is coming. Okay, that joke might be a little old, but really, we're about to have a pretty chilly couple of months. Forecasters are predicting a La Niña event in the Pacific Ocean. Basically, that means people up north are going to want to invest in some space heaters. La Niña is a recurring climate pattern like El Niño, just with the opposite effect. El Niño brings warmer ocean temperatures, while La Niña comes with cooler temps. And from the looks of it, the US will be striped with different weather patterns. Southern states can expect drier than normal conditions. Northern states, on the other hand, will be colder and wetter. And middle states might get a mix of both. Another forecast from the atmospheric and environmental research firm sees the cold extending down a little further on the map to include cities like Chicago and Washington, D.C. So if you like snow, this is probably really good news, but if you don't, well, better luck next time.